Hey folks, this is Pastor Andy and Pastor Bilbo bringing you another daily devotion. It's a beautiful morning. We're out here by the flowers in the front of our house and appreciating the closest thing we have to a garden. And we're going to be beginning the Gospel of John's version of the resurrection stories. We've pretty much finished the other three. We may briefly break from John to finish Luke on Sunday morning in our Antioch's worship service, but John is a little more spread out. There's a lot of unique things, and I wanted to take our time with that throughout this week and maybe a little next week. So just to start off with John chapter 20, which takes place in the garden. So here I am, right, with these beautiful flowers, beautiful spring colors. You can see some of the trees behind the house and the clouds moving around. And it's blue way up there. Hopefully we'll get more of that blue and it'll bring the sunshine too. Bilbo's appreciating it. We can just imagine Mary Magdalene as she's going to the garden tomb to find Jesus' body. And I'm going to skip some of those first verses because they're so familiar, right? Jesus isn't in the tomb. The stone's rolled away. Mary's like, what's going on? She runs back, tells the disciples. Peter and another disciple go to the tomb, find that it's empty. Mary is left there by herself, wondering what is going on. And I want to pick up with verse 11. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white, seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They've taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they've put him." At this point, they turned around and she saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them he had said these things to her. Now, the similarities between this account and the other Gospels, of course, we get the women going to the tomb. In this case, Mary Magdalene is the consistent element, right? All the Gospels agree. Mary Magdalene was the first witness to the truth of the resurrection. And she was the one to then go and spread the word to everybody else. Right? Go women. That's all good. We also find here, though, some weird differences. There are angels that appear in the tomb. They don't say anything, right? And they weren't there the first time they all looked. They weren't there when Peter looked in. But they show up all of a sudden. It's kind of different, right? It's kind of mysterious, kind of sudden and unexpected. And then Mary turns around and she sees this person that she assumes is the gardener. Maybe he moved the tomb for some reason, right? Maybe someone didn't fill out the paperwork, and so he was like, "Oh, I got to do this. I got to move the body, right?" Until they fill out. Who knows what's going on? Who knows what Mary's assuming? She doesn't see that it's Jesus. And we don't know why that is. Does Jesus look so different in his resurrected body that she doesn't get it at first? Is she crying so hard she can't tell? Is there some kind of a veil? Or is she just mentally and emotionally not in the right place to get what's happening? It's not until Jesus says her name, Mary. That's all he says. It's just a name. And it awakens her from whatever she's been under the emotional spell of. And immediately it dawns on her, this is him. And she calls him by that term, Rabboni, teacher, like rabbi. That's the first thing that comes to her mind to say. And I'm amazed at the power of names, right? And calling people by their first names to get their attention. Sometimes that's what it takes, is kind of a wake up if someone says Andy. It brings me out of whatever stupor or sleep I was in, right? And I'm paying attention. Jesus knows our names. He calls us. Bilbo, you probably shouldn't eat flowers. It's kind of weird, bud. It's not that kind of garden. All right, come here. Jesus knows all of our names, right? When I call Bilbo's name, Bilbo stops what he's doing, turns and looks at me. Bilbo. Apparently not. But sometimes he does. So, think about Jesus calling your name, your true name, the name that gets your attention, and saying it in such a way that it's not like a punishment, right? It's not like someone saying your full Andrew Charles Duffy, right? It's Andy or Bilbo or whatever your name is. Spend some time just listening and imagining God saying, Jesus saying your name intimately, personally, longingly. Because that's what Jesus does here with Mary. And it's this personal call that often inspires us to go and do the work that God calls us to do. To proclaim the news of a new life and hope and love and live it out in our service. Jesus is alive and he's calling us. Let's go get to it. Bye.